Soon after taking over as the Aviation Minister of India, Mohan Naidu has announced his commitment to ensuring more affordable airfares for domestic flights. Naidu stressed that reducing the cost of flying for the common man will be a top priority for the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Now, in the month of February this year, a parliamentary committee also proposed that the government should frame guidelines to control sudden surges in airfares, adding that a route-specific fare ceiling can be examined. Airlines say fares are driven by supply and demand. India's two biggest airlines, IndiGo and the Tata Group airlines, have hundreds of new planes on order, and the government is adding more airports to cater to the ever-growing demand for flight travel in the country. For more on the story, we're now being joined
Well, definitely, I really can't decide on one decision to bring down the prices. But like I'm saying, it is a very important issue today. My whole intention is to make air travel reach to the common man. And it has happened over 10 years. There have been Udan scheme that has come up. Modi ji has also said, Hawai Chappal se Hawai Jahaj tak. So I want to make it a reality for that. For that, prices have to be affordable. Now the market scenarios or the other external factors, COVID, so a lot of different factors have made in improving the prices. So we have to sit down, the department has to sit down, and whenever that thing is happening, my intention or my priority would be from the people of this country that to bring down the prices, and I would sit down with that point of view.
Now we have my colleague Karthik Malhotra joining us from our newsroom for more on that story that we're tracking. Karthik, right from the get-go, India's new civil aviation minister is sending out the right message.
Absolutely. I think Mr. Naidu is very right in his intention, at least, that he wants to make air travel accessible and affordable for the common man. But unfortunately, it's something else that he hinted to, that, there are issues which are outside of the minister's control and outside of the government's control as well. For example, airlines have been talking about ATF, the aviation turbine fuel, and the cost of that only increasing. And matters in the Middle East have not helped, with fuel prices overall, oil prices overall only rising. Add to that India's own concerns on the rupee. So a depreciating rupee for an import commodity like oil obviously makes it more expensive for India to keep the ATF coming in, and that cost is something which passengers like you and me, Krishna, have to deal with and live with. Now, there's another challenge as well. India's whole aviation market has become a duopoly. Between IndiGo and the Air India combined, the Tata Group of airlines, you've got 90% of the market share between these two entities. IndiGo, for example, is a 60% market share, while Air India, including Vistara, Air India Express and the government, previously government-owned Air India, is about 30%. So 90% of the market is controlled by two entities. So it is a duopoly, and with duopoly, the advantage of setting prices rests with the players in the duopoly. Unfortunately, Go First was knocked off the skies last year, and there are insolvency proceedings still on against Go First. But the whole point is that it's a question of demand and supply, and that's something Mr. Naidu has also said. I'll give you some perspective there, Krishna. For example, the demand for air travel has increased 23% last year. But the air prices on a year-on-year basis have only increased 12.3%. So overall, while there is higher demand, there isn't enough supply to cater to that demand. And despite that, air prices have not really, or air fares have not really grown in the same measure or in the same percentage as the demand for air travel has. And then there are challenges with engines. There are challenges with planes being grounded because of faulty engines, etc. So the number of flights taking off and landing has also come down. But the number of passengers is only growing. In fact, India is the fastest growing aviation market in the world.
Right. But Karthik, we began this entire story by talking about the record number of orders for new aircraft that have been placed by the two players that you're talking about, that is IndiGo and the Tata Group owned airline conglomerate, so to speak, which means that in the near future, we're looking at more and more aircraft entering India's fleet and catering to that growing demand. So with more aircraft...
So Krishna, just imagine how that's going to pan out. Number one, these aircraft are not going to come tomorrow. They are not going to come next week. In fact, Air India is inducting on an average one new aircraft a week, right? So the triple-digit aircraft order that the Indian market has placed with both Airbus and Boeing is only going to get satiated over the next few years. Add to that, there is also going to be a demand for pilots. So the Airbus chief who was in India, a few months ago had said that India will need as many as 2,800 new pilots. So now these new pilots, when they get inducted, and the competition which is there between the two biggest players as well as a smaller player, in fact two small players, which is SpiceJet and Akasa Air, will only mean that over time you will actually have to compensate those additional pilots and pay their salaries as well. And then of course, there are going to be sectors which are going to be more frequented. I think Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Goa continue to be the most traveled destinations in India. But with air travel needing to become more accessible, more affordable, it will also have to be linked to the infrastructure investment that the government is doing in building new airports, and then the viability of that is going to come in even later. So all of these costs also at some point are going to be translated back to consumers like you and me, and these are issues which are outside of anybody's control, including Mr. Naidu's.
Right. So basically, Karthik, you're telling us that for all the good intentions of our new civil aviation minister, it's going to be extremely difficult to bring down airfares for domestic flights in the country. Well, we'll have to wait and watch.